But let's concentrate on the story at hand. Again, a story which CNBC TV 18 broke about 48 hours ago, that this merger could happen. Amit Tandon, the managing director at IIaS, a watchdog for shareholders, is joining us now. Amit, what would be the concerns of a minority shareholder if a merger like this were to go through?
Look, as you point out in your commentary, that this is at this moment a little bit speculative, but just given the noise around it and just the specificity of some of the information which is flowing through, it seems that it's more likely to happen than not. At this moment, I think there are a couple of markers for investors to be looking out for, and therefore it might make sense to just walk you through some of these. The first, of course, first and foremost, is the valuation. At some price, it will make sense. At some price, it will seem expensive or not fair to shareholders of one company or the other. And therefore, what's the right balance in terms of the swap ratio? Is it that the Cairn shareholders are getting compensated adequately, or if it's depending on the nature of the merger, or is it that the Vedanta shareholders are getting compensated adequately? That is something which will have to be seen, and that will we will know only once a price or the swap ratio is announced. The second is that, we know that Mr. Agarwal has been talking about a large resource-based entity, but it'll still be interesting to understand how the pieces fit together, and by that I'm looking at two things. The first is a more compelling argument in terms of the business cycles for the ferrous, the non-ferrous, and the oil and gas. Do they kind of coincide? Are they counter-cyclical? To understand what the cash flows are, and equally importantly, to understand the cash flows of each of the businesses and how they play into each other. I know there is speculation about using the 17,000 crores on the Cairn balance sheet to pay off some of the Vedanta debt, which is due shortly. But you need to remember that a merger of this scale and size will take about 6 to 12 months to consummate, and therefore it's not a given that the cash is going to be used. Plus, given the overhang on the tax, maybe there is some restrictions in terms of whether the cash can be used or cannot be used. And of course, finally, is the structure itself. There is talk about a merger, a reverse merger, what's the form and shape it takes. So there are these three things which we need to look at before, and investors would be monitoring as they form an opinion about the merger, right, and how supportive they would be of a merger like this.
Okay. Amit, hi, morning. The meeting is on Sunday, so we'll get to know more details on that. But have you done any ballpark calculations on what the swap ratio could be that will ensure that Cairn shareholders could get compensated adequately?
No, look, at this moment, again, there's not enough information out there. And as I mentioned, there is talk of, a reverse merger rather than a merger. So depending on how it pans out, that's when we'll know. At this moment, there isn't enough information for us to, try and speculate in terms of what the exchange ratio would be.
Okay. What about, the new protection that's anyway come for the minority shareholders? Mergers like these will have to get majority yes from the minority shareholders, and in this case you also have a powerful entity like Cairn Inc. in the picture. So you think safeguards are there now, so one needn't bother. They will take care if the proposals are disingenuous or harmful to minority shareholders.
No, Lata, you're absolutely right. There is enough safeguards in terms of the what the SEBI guidelines are as of now. The company will need to have a postal ballot, and you need to remember it's two stages. One would be when there's a court-convened meeting, plus the shareholder meetings. There will have to be postal ballot, so it's not that people would have to show up at the registered office of the companies to be able to vote. So that is a big thing. The second is it is an approval of majority of minority investors. So both of them means that there is a safeguard. Of course, there is the added complication that, you've got a different set of shareholders for Cairn and a different set of shareholders for Vedanta. Now, if the share prices of the two companies is anything to go by, you could end up in a situation where when approves a merger and another set of shareholders vote against it. So there are a number of permutations and combinations which are possible at this stage, and therefore it's good to it's interesting and fun to speculate about it, but I think if the announcement happens on Sunday, as you people have been expecting, that's when the hard work will begin.
Okay. But broadly, Amit, I mean, just leaving all the speculation of numbers aside, how should a Cairn investor approach this? I mean, the initial reaction was, why should Vedanta use all of Cairn's cash? So Cairn was under quite a bit of pressure because it is the cash-rich company. But is that the way that a Cairn investor should approach it, or do you think eventually this merger will be beneficial for both Cairn and Vedanta shareholders?
Look, at the moment, both the companies have taken a big hit given where we are on the commodity cycle and on the oil and gas cycle. So the merger is not from a position of strength for either of them. So what you're saying is that you've got two lames, and the question is whether that makes a whole person or not. That's the question to ask at this stage. But equally importantly, if I were a Cairn shareholder, one of the things I would ask myself is that, look, I've got cash and I'm pumping oil out from the ground. So over a period of time, I've got an asset which does not, which is actually kind of diminishing in value. And unless I'm replacing oil fields with other oil fields, there's really not much point in remaining invested in Cairn for the very long time. Plus, of course, there's the overhang of the tax. So I'm not really at this moment, just given whatever little information is there and in the absence of any valuation, it's not really clear in terms of how what is appropriate, what will happen. But yeah, as a Cairn shareholder, one of the things, while I might worry about the fact that where the cash will get used, at the moment I'm also worrying about the fact that, is the oil which is being pumped out being replaced by a new asset on the ground or not?
Okay. Well, fair enough. Thanks a lot, Amit Tandon, for joining us. We will, of course, touch base with you after Sunday to check whether the expected news materializes, and thereafter what are the options available for reluctant Cairn shareholders. To be fair, as we pointed out and as Amit said, there are two big minority shareholders, 9% with Cairn Inc. and 9% with, actually 10% with Cairn Inc., 9.8%. And 9% with LIC, who are people who understand responsibilities and the nuances that's happening within the company. So I would assume in this specific case, the minority shareholder interest is protected by these large groups. Totally, the minority shareholder interest would be about 40%, and between them, these guys have 20%. So, or almost that. So there is a fair chance that minority interest will be safeguarded by these big entities.